The 1st of January 2019 was when I started tracking every day of my life. I had just started my freshman year of uni at the time and have decided to track what I do on a daily basis, as well as my mood, my activities, and then some short notes about what I've been doing. Since then, I've successfully kept this habit for the next 5 years of my life, during which I finished my studies, successfully graduated, and moved countries twice, as well as starting my professional career. How have I accomplished the consistency to never skip a day, and what have I learned in the process about myself and my habits? Was it worth it to keep this habit for all these years? Let me explain. So I know a lot of people just use a traditional pen and paper. They grab a piece of paper and then they just write down some notes about how their day was, what they did, and how enjoyable it was. In my case, I prefer to use an app on my phone. For me, it's just more convenient, so I don't have to, carry a notebook around with the extra weight of the paper. And with this app, I basically write down my activities, I write down my mood for that day, and then I also write some notes about what I did, how enjoyable it was, and then just to have an idea of what I did on that day, so an overview. And as I mentioned previously, I've been doing this for 5 years now, so I started on the 1st of January 2019, and since then I've never skipped a day, so I've been very much doing this every single day since then, and I've never forgot to add any entry to my diary. Now, the app that I use is called Olia. This video is not sponsored, by the way, but when I just picked it up 5 years ago, I ended up liking it, and then I've just stuck with it. I'm pretty sure there's better alternatives out there, but that's just the one that I use. Now, I don't really remember why I started using this app. What I do recall is that I saw someone on Reddit using this app, and they were like tracking their mood and how they felt and whatnot, and I just found it like really interesting because I'm a person that really likes statistics and to track habits. I mentioned this in my previous video, so like not only how I'm doing in the gym, how my progress is, or even in when I used to study, like how my studying went, but I really like to have statistics and data. Nowadays I more or less do this out of habit. I don't really have a reason to keep going other than it's just interesting to go back and see what I've did and how my life has been. Usually around New Year's time, 1st of January, I like to look back and see how my year was, to see some statistics, to see like the correlations between certain activities or certain things that I did and my happiness. But at this point, it's more like, why should I stop? I like it, it's fascinating. It takes me like 1-2 minutes per day maximum. And actually, like on a daily basis, when I meet friends and when I see them and when I first talk to people about this and I show them what I've been doing, everyone is always amazed at, wow, like not only the patience, but to be able to go back and see what I've been doing and how my days have been and to know each exact detail of every day of my life. Because if you think about it, you don't really remember every single day of your life, every single thing you've done, and even if you had like an amazing week, let's say you went to a festival or a trip, you liked it, it was nice, but you don't really have a breakdown of how your days were. Most people, they just have their gallery with the photos and videos, but it's another perspective that you can have. And as I mentioned, it's not only nice to, track my activities, but it's also a nice way to track habits. So for instance, I remember during COVID, I didn't go outside as much as all of you, I suppose. And so I still wanted to keep myself minimally physically active, and I wanted to walk a lot. So I set a goal to do 8,000 steps per day. So through this app, I could track how I've been doing and how well I've been keeping this habit. Now, what have I learned by this? So first of all, as you can expect, activities such as drinking, going out, partying, they have a higher correlation with my happiness, and it is quite obvious. So until recently, I was in university, and you can tell how this correlation just makes sense. Now, there's two things I have to say about this. On one hand, it's quite expected that these activities are fun in the moment, and at the end of the day, when I sit down and I write on my app how I felt that day, of course I'm going to attribute that day with a more positive rating. However, it's also important to acknowledge that the fact that these activities had a higher impact on my happiness in the short term, so for that specific day, it doesn't mean that throughout time it's the most sustainable. Let's say someone goes out and parties every day, or someone that likes partying, of course they're going to enjoy that day and it's going to be positive when reflecting back on it. But if you do that every single day, it comes to a point where you're just tired and it's not sustainable. So you need to have a critical mindset about if something is sustainable and if it's going to bring you long-term happiness or if it's just for the long term, such as alcohol, obviously. Sometimes I do have 2 or 3 entries per day when there's a big contrast between the way I felt in the morning and in the afternoon, but normally I'm just forced to generalize my mood for that entire day. Something that I've noticed actually is that, for instance, I love gaming and it's something that I really enjoy, and I just go on Discord and play with my friends. On the days that I game, I generally have an average lower mood compared to days where I don't, which is quite curious because you would think, oh, he likes gaming, so of course it's going to be a day that is above the average. I think that this has a correlation with productivity. How I interpret this is that in days where I game and I just, spend the whole day on my computer, I'm not that productive. And that feeling of not being productive leads me to, at night when I lie down and I input my mood for the day, I think, okay, it was fun, I enjoyed it, but I didn't really do anything. I didn't really feel productive or working for tomorrow, if this makes sense. How do I keep myself disciplined with this routine? Now, I don't know if you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's an amazing book. I highly recommend it. And essentially what it talks about is how you can create new habits out of anything. It's really easy to start up with something, but then it's hard to maintain consistency. One of the main ideas the author talks about in this book, and it's what I apply in this case, is that to create a new habit, you really have to make it obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. So in my case, my phone pushes a notification every day around 10-11 p.m. I know it takes me 1 minute to fill out the report for the day, and then it's satisfying to see, okay, 1 more day done, 1 more for the entry, and then I contribute to my streak, and that helps me get going. In conclusion, there are several things that this really helped me with. First, it gives me perspective. So even if there's a week where I'm feeling under the weather or not as happy as normally, I can really look on my diary, look back on my week, my month, and then see that, like, in the big picture, it actually hasn't been as bad as I thought. Secondly, and this is really important, but I've noticed that when I have a day where I get things done, where I do chores, I study, I work, I cook, I clean, there's really this high correlation between being productive and how I felt in that day. So the feeling of having been productive and getting things done really gives me a sense of accomplishment and progression. Now, of course, this is not something that I would consider life-changing, but it's really nice once in a while to look back and reflect. Now, in conclusion, do I recommend that people do this? I do. I do believe that people should try to do this like 1-2 months. Just see how it works out for you. It doesn't take much time. It's like 1-2 minutes per day. It's interesting to see what you've been doing and how your days have been, and it's just fun. Especially if you're like a very analytical person and you really enjoy statistics. I think this is the thing for you. And if you don't, just try it out. There's really nothing to lose, and it's quite fun, and it's also a fun fact at parties. So that was everything for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you really enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. Take care.